All right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring the world of pets that are a little different. If you've ever thought about getting a reptile but have no idea where to even begin, then you are in the right place. We're going to focus on one of the most popular choices out there, the corn snake. So the idea has crossed your mind, right? A scaly companion seems pretty cool. Definitely a change from the usual cat or dog. It's a really fascinating world. But yeah, it also comes with a ton of questions and, let's be honest, probably a bit of uncertainty. And look, that's completely understandable. A lot of people feel a little apprehensive when they think about snakes. I mean, there are so many myths and just plain wrong ideas floating around that can make anyone think twice. But what if I told you the reality is actually much gentler and way more rewarding than you'd think? So let's get you some solid answers. First up, we'll get properly introduced to the corn snake. Then we're going to bust some of those common myths. After that, we'll get into the practical stuff, setting up the perfect home and figuring out their diet. And finally, we'll tackle the big one. Is a corn snake really the right long-term pet for you? Okay, so let's meet the star of our show. The corn snake is pretty much always recommended as the perfect starting point for anyone new to reptiles. And that name? Well, the most popular theory is that the checkerboard pattern on their belly looks a lot like the kernels on a piece of Indian corn. Pretty cool, huh? So its scientific name is Pantherophis guttatus, and it's a totally non-venomous kind of rat snake. But the two phrases you really want to pay attention to here are docile temperament and manageable size. Honestly, those two things are exactly why they are so popular, especially for first-timers. And when you look at the details, you can really see the appeal. They only grow to about 3 to 5 feet, which is super manageable. Their classic orange and red look is just beautiful. And that's just the basic model. Breeders have created an amazing variety of colors and patterns, which are called morphs. But the thing that really makes them special? Their temperament. They're known for being gentle and calm, which makes the whole idea of handling them way less scary for a beginner. Right, let's talk about the elephant, or, the snake, in the room. So much of the hesitation people have about snakes comes from these common myths. It's time to sort out the facts from the fiction. This has got to be the number one thing people think. The image that pops into your head is probably something that's wet and slimy to the touch and ready to strike at any moment. It's a really powerful image. But is it true for a corn snake? No, not at all, not even close. The reality is their scales are totally dry and smooth, and they're actually really nice to touch. And aggressive? Corn snakes are famous for being one of the calmest, most docile species you can own. Biting is incredibly rare, and it really only happens if they feel cornered or threatened. Let's bust two more big ones. First, this idea that you have to feed them live animals. For a lot of people, that's a deal breaker. But the good news is that the recommended way, the safer and more humane way, is to use prey that's been frozen and then thawed out. And second, the myth that snakes are low maintenance. Sure, you don't have to take them for a walk, but they absolutely need consistent care to get their temperature and humidity just right. We'll get to that next. So, what are those needs we just mentioned? Let's figure out how to build the perfect home for your potential new pet. Getting the habitat right from the start is, without a doubt, the most important part of being a responsible owner. Okay, these numbers right here, they're not just suggestions. Snakes are cold-blooded, which means they can't make their own body heat. They need you to create a temperature gradient, basically a warm side and a cool side of the tank, so they can move around and regulate their own temperature. That basking spot is their little hot zone, which is crucial for digesting food, and keeping the humidity right is key for them to shed their skin properly. And here's your shopping list to get it all done. An adult corn snake needs a pretty big enclosure. You'll need a reliable heat source and, this is really important, digital tools to accurately check the temperature and humidity. Hides are a must so they feel secure. You need at least 2, one on the warm side and one on the cool. Oh, and don't forget things like branches for climbing. Snakes get bored too and need stuff to do. So we've built the house. Now it's time to talk about dinner. Feeding a snake can seem like a big deal, but honestly, it's a super simple process once you know the rules. It really is as easy as 1, 2, 3. First, you thaw out the right-sized food. The rule of thumb is that the rodent shouldn't be much wider than the thickest part of your snake's body. Second, you always use tongs to offer the food. This is so your snake doesn't get confused and think your hand is food. And third, and this is so important for their health, you have to leave them completely alone for 2 or 3 days after they eat so they can digest in peace. So, how often do they need to eat? Probably not as often as you think. Younger snakes that are still growing need to eat about once a week. But for a full-grown adult, it's more like every 7 to 10 days. You have to be careful not to overfeed, so sticking to a schedule is really important. So, we've gone over the what and the how. Now we get to the most important question of all, should you? This last part is all about making sure you understand the long-term commitment. Take a good look at that number. This is, hands down, the most important thing to understand. A corn snake isn't a pet you get for a couple of years. This is a 15 to 20-year commitment. You have to be ready to care for this animal for its entire life. Now, here in the UK, you don't need a special license or anything, but you are legally required by the Animal Welfare Act to provide proper care. Also, if you're renting, you absolutely have to check your tenancy agreement. And then there's the money. Beyond the first setup costs, you have to budget for ongoing things like food, the electricity for the heater, and, just in case, a fund for a specialist vet. But if you can meet that commitment, the payoff is huge. They are truly fascinating animals to watch and care for. And for families, they are an incredible living lesson in biology, ecology, and what it really means to be a responsible pet owner. So at the end of the day, it's your call. You've got the facts, you know the reality behind the myths, and you understand the huge commitment involved. A corn snake can be an absolutely amazing educational companion for the right person. The only question left is, are you ready to be that person for the next couple of decades?